Just making sure you can hear me, correct? Excellent. Welcome to another random walk down Mill Street. Tonight's topic is Gedolei Yisrael. The greats of Israel. An unusual poster from Shearith Israel's archives. And the background to this is some years ago, I was in Shearith Israel's archives, and I came across something intriguing. I have no idea what it has to do with Shearith Israel, other than it is in our archives. Whether it was purchased by Shearith Israel, whether it was given to Shearith Israel, whether it was owned by a member of the synagogue, I don't know. This remains a mystery. I'm not sure I'll ever discover it, but it is an interesting little tidbit of history, of Jewish history, of German Jewish history, well, you'll see. I'm going to share my screen now, and you'll take a look at what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay. I titled this Giants of Israel, Gedolei Yisrael, Shearith Israel's Gedolim poster of 1870. And a couple of years ago, I was in the archives, and in a box that has oversized material, so it's not connected to anything else. So I really don't know where or when it came to Shearith Israel, is the following, or was the following. It is still there, so I should say is the following. This is the poster. It's larger than a regular size piece of paper. It's not huge, but it's I don't know, 17 by 14, 11 by 14, something. It's a large poster size, not huge, but it's like, larger than a regular size piece of paper. And as you can see, it has lots of pictures on it. And if you start looking at it, it becomes confusing, because you'll recognize some of the people in here. Others you probably will not. I'm sure there are lots of pictures you don't recognize. But the composition is weird. And so it made me wonder, what is this thing? And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So I did a little research, not enough to publish anything, but I think enough to sort of tell you about this poster that is in Shearith Israel's archives. So if you are in the Orthodox world, you may have been to someone's sukkah, especially if they are in the more right-wing side of things, and seen posters in their sukkah of great rabbis. And these I just found on the internet. These pictures, you can buy these in Judaica stores for $10 to $15, $20, and nice laminated pictures of all these great rabbis. You can hang it up in your sukkah. Why you would want to do that, beyond the discussion today, but people do it, often with verses or some kind of phrase. This is a verse from Isaiah. Some of these are rabbinic phrases. Anyway, as you can see, people put pictures. Current rabbis, deceased rabbis, they do it. And if you go to a Judaica store, sometimes you'll see not just these composite posters, but you'll see portraits. So you can hang a portrait of the Chafetz Chaim in your house, or Ovadia Yosef, or whoever you want. I don't know exactly why you'd want to do that, but people do. And this phenomenon has been studied by a professor in Hebrew University named Richard Cohen, who published a book about Jewish icons, and he has a whole chapter on rabbinic icons, where, especially from the beginning in the 18th century, pictures of rabbis become popular, and they take on a sort of a life of their own. People venerate them, not exactly like an icon in other religions. People don't pray to them, but certainly there is some kind of, I don't know, religious feeling about them, even if it's just a picture. whether that's because they feel connected to the subject, or they feel that those people are holy, or whatever it is. And I can tell you in my own house, my mother, who I think is on here, there is a picture, a pencil drawing of Ramaz Margolis, Moshe Zvulun Margolis, who was the namesake of Ramaz school, the father-in-law of Joseph Lookstein, and who was the rabbi on the east side in KJ. And he didn't like to have his photograph taken. There are photographs of him, but he didn't like to have his photograph taken much. And the story goes that this picture was taken, this drawing was done by an artist who went to the yeshiva and put up a very large Gemara and had a sketch pad and sketched the rabbi unbeknownst to him, because he would not have sat for such a portrait. And I tell that story really just to illustrate two things. One, even modern Orthodox people have pictures of modern Orthodox rabbis in their homes. Maybe not as common as in the right-wing world, but it does happen. And secondly, there is, generally speaking, often a reluctance, especially in the Orthodox world, among rabbinic figures or of an earlier era, to having their photograph or picture taken. Whether they're afraid of running afoul of the Ten Commandments, of making a graven image. I don't think that's really the issue, because there's so many pictures, as you can see, or just some kind of discomfort. So you'll sometimes see rabbis who go like this. They don't want their picture taken. They'll cover their face in some way, because there's some discomfort of being venerated in such a way. Anyway, that's just background to say you can go into a lot of places and see pictures of rabbis, but that wasn't always the case. And this really is a phenomenon that starts in the 19th century. Individual pictures started being included in books in the 18th century, maybe even in the 17th century. Sometimes you'll see the author of a book, an engraving, or some kind of picture of them. But posters like this is something much more modern. So let's go back to what we have. This is the poster in Shearith Israel's archives. It has 9 panels, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 9 panels. And if you count them up, there's 78 pictures of Gedolei Yisrael, the greats of Israel. Actually has a German title that's written above it. Berühmte Männer in Israel, famous men of Israel. And then there's a Hebrew phrase here with a little micrography medallion kind of drawing here. I don't know exactly what it says. It's too small for me to read. And in the middle, it says Ha'omdim al ha'avodah, those who stand guard in service of the people, or something like that. And in very small letters, I've blown it up as much as I dared. It says Bilvavam, Vavodatam, or I think it's what it says, Ubmoadam. Yeah, with their hearts, with their service, and with their means. Like kind of paraphrasing the Shema a little bit, the first paragraph of the Shema, that these people are greats of Israel for their spirit, for their deeds, and for their philanthropy, as we shall see. And then it tells you the year, Vatem hadvekim b'Hashem, Depak. So I calculated that out. 630, 5630, 1870. This is a poster from 1870. It's a Gedolei poster of 1870. Pretty early. And it's in Shearith Israel's archives. So what's going on here? Let's take a closer look at all of these panels. I tried my darndest to figure out who all these rabbis were. We're not going to go through each one, but you will see quickly why it is a very curious collection of images. So I'm just going to go through each panel relatively quickly. This is the top right panel. If you want to go back, you can see top right here. You see this fellow, this interesting looking fellow. That's him right there. Okay, starting in the top right panel. Each panel, or except for the center, has 9 rabbis in each. 4 on the top, 5 on the bottom. This is the way the person who composed this poster did it. And as you'll see, some of these people are known, some of them are very kind of obscure, but the top one is Nathan Adler, pretty famous, chief rabbi of the British Empire, Nathan Adler. Here he is. As you go through, some of these names are more famous than others. The most famous person in this frame is this man. That's Zechariah Frankel. Who is Zechariah Frankel? Zechariah Frankel started the rabbinic seminary of Breslau. Today he would be known as the founder of the Positive Historic School, which is essentially the philosophy that JTS later adopted, and is the philosophy of the conservative movement, if there can be said to be a philosophy of the conservative movement. I don't know. That's a different topic for a different day. But that's essentially what, he's not exactly a reformer, maybe a mild reformer, I would say. Not in his practice, but in the philosophy of Judaism and the development of halakha. He's considered the father of the positive historical school, or just the historical school. A very famous Perush HaMishnayot that he wrote in the 19th century. And that's him. And the other people here have different levels of fame. Most of them are Googleable. I tried to Google most of these people. Rabbi of this place, rabbi of that place. The thing that you get quickly as you start looking through all of them, and as you go through each one, is that nearly every single person in this picture is university educated. Rabbis who are university educated. Okay? Moving along to the next panel. This one is a little different. I mean, it's the same structure, 4 rabbis, 5 rabbis, but these are much more severely Orthodox rabbis. Here you have the Katav Sofer, the son of the Chatam Sofer, Rabbi Avraham Schreiber. You have Rabbi Ettlinger, Yaakov Ettlinger, the Aruch Laner. I don't know who Elia Gutmacher is or Avram Zwebner is, but they're more Orthodox than the panel before, or at least more severely Orthodox, I should say. And then in the center, the most famous, well, a lot of these are pretty famous people, but compared to Zechariah Frankel and the last one, here is Samson Raphael Hirsch. Now, the thing you have to know is Zechariah Frankel and Samson Raphael Hirsch really did not get along. Hirsch criticized him, excoriated him as being not traditional, not Orthodox, beyond the pale of orthodoxy. They really did not get along. So the fact that they're on the same poster is pretty weird. And here's Rabbi Auerbach. I think has has some famous descendants as well. Okay, that's the second tab. I'm just going to go through them. You'll see some of them more famous, some of them less famous. Here's the top left. This is a third panel. Some of these people, I could not make out what it said. I don't even know who this is. Mayor Feivel Falk of Roshagen. I don't know who that is. I tried to figure it out. Other ones are easier. This is Rabbi Abraham Plachik, who was the chief rabbi of Moravia after Samson Raphael Hirsch went to Frankfurt. So some of these people are well known. Some of them are less known, but less well known. But then as you start to go along, yes, these are all Orthodox. Marcus Lehman, who was the rabbi in Mainz, Orthodox rabbi in Mainz, who published der Israelit, the main Orthodox Jewish newspaper in Germany. These are almost all, not exclusively, but almost all German rabbis or rabbis of German-speaking places. And they are almost all university educated, regardless of their level of orthodoxy. But some of them are different than others. So you get to this bottom level here. This is Moritz Gudeman. Moritz Gudeman is a historian. I think he was educated as a rabbi, but he's known not as a rabbi, but more as a historian. And this person next to him, this is Raphael Rabinowitz. He authored Dikduke Sofrim, a little book where he has corrections to the text of the Talmud, things that were edited out by the censors. Orthodox, very much so Orthodox, but definitely on the more academic side of things than you might imagine in a Gedolim poster. Okay. Well, I see you have some chats, so let's take a look at the chats. I think yes, so we can talk about Rebbe cards. I know when I was a kid, I had some Rebbe cards. They were a novelty. I don't think people have them anymore, but yeah, that the people used to have such a thing. And we'll talk about the advent of photography. Yeah, exactly. All of these comments are exactly right on, right on target. That the advent of photography made having pictures of rabbis more of a interesting thing in the 19th century. But still, this is probably the first or among the first posters of a collection of rabbis. And it's not what you would expect such a collection to be. So we keep going in this. So now we're on the second level. And here you have some very interesting people. This is the chief rabbi of Paris. He's famous for in his biography for having introduced Yizkor into the Yom Kippur service. So, if you think of like the German communities which didn't have Yizkor, he's the one who put it into the French Ashkenazic service. And so these people are sort of linked. Well, they're not. They're some of them are. These are like French Ashkenaz, but then you get and these are Orthodox rabbis. But then you get over here. You know who this? This is Marcus Jastrow, moderate reformer who went to Philadelphia and definitely not in the Orthodox camp. He's at least maybe he starts off as such, but it doesn't end up that way. But he's the person with the Talmudic dictionary a lot of people use when they're studying the Talmud. He has written a very and it's still almost unsurpassed. I mean, academically been surpassed, but ease of use and common use, everyone uses Jastrow when you're in yeshiva to look up hard words in the Gemara. And then this fellow here is a maskil, and he is a Hebraist, not really a rabbi at all. And so you get some of these strange insertions in this poster. And now you get to the center, which you would expect to be the greatest people of the whole poster. In fact, if we go back to what the poster looked like, they have a little more space. There are only 5 people in the center. Oops. 5 people in the center here. You see this? So let's go take a closer look at who they are. You might recognize some of them. Okay. Right there in the most central position with the 10 commandments around him, although I actually can't, it's too small for me to read what it says here, is Moses Montefiore, who was for sure the most famous Jew of the 19th century in the world, among Orthodox people, among Reform people, among non-Jews. Moses Montefiore, Sir Moses, was fantastically wealthy, great advocate for Jews around the world, and building up of Jerusalem and Israel, and I could go on and on. But certainly the most famous Jew of the 19th century, Sir Moses Montefiore. Also had a very long life and was extremely philanthropic. And so he gets the front and center. Who's on the right? These are 2 brothers from the Rothschild clan. Anselm Rothschild from Frankfurt and James Rothschild from Paris. There are other Rothschild siblings, but they didn't make this poster. And who's on the left? This man is Akiva Leren of Amsterdam, who was a philanthropist in Amsterdam, who was also in charge of the charities of Amsterdam and of the gave money to the upbuilding of Israel outside of the old city. And this gentleman here, whose name is Albert Cohn, who starts out his life as a rabbi and a maskil. He studies languages, ends up becoming the tutor for this man's children, James Rothschild's children in Paris. He's born in Hungary, a German-speaking part of Hungary, I believe, and ends up moving to Paris. His name is Albert Cohn, and the Rothschilds like him. He educates their kids, and when his kids are grown, they hire him as the administrator for their philanthropies throughout the world. That's Albert Cohn. Now, take a look at the pictures here. There's something very interesting going on. The man in the center is Moses Montefiore. Moses Montefiore very frequently is pictured with a yarmulke. Whether this picture originally has it or not, I don't know. But all four of the other ones, the artist has put yarmulkes on these people. Their original pictures do not have yarmulkes. And you can find these pictures. They're pretty famous people. You can Google their names. You can see this exact picture on the internet, but they don't have yarmulkes. So I guess for a Gedolim poster, the artist didn't want them to be bareheaded, which is very strange because we'll see later other people who are rabbis are pictured without a yarmulke. So what's going on? I have no idea. But these people, a yarmulke was put on them for the purpose of this poster. Okay, moving right along. This is the next panel. Oh no, I went backwards, sorry. The next panel. You have, again, Orthodox rabbis who are educated in university educated. Michael Sachs he's a rabbi in Berlin, and when he opposes the introduction of organ, and so he falls in the Orthodox camp. Although really a lot of these people try not to take sides, but ultimately most of these people are on the Orthodox side of the debate. It's 1870. There is a pretty wide divide between Orthodox and Reform by this point. But some of these people still are, from the previous decades, were people who tried to thread the line. The most of this grouping, the strangest one, is this person here, Isaac Mannheimer, who was the rabbi in, I think, originally in Copenhagen, but then most famously in Vienna, in the synagogue where Solomon Sulzer was. And so the introduction of an organ, the introduction of a choir, he tried to thread the line, and whether he was successful or not, I don't know. Most people will consider him a mild reformer who tried to keep tradition alive in Vienna, but he's lumped together with Sachs, who is Orthodox, definitely in the Orthodox camp. So it's a little confusing what all these rabbis are doing together. They're not all the same camp. Certainly not with Hirsch or the Ktav Sofer or any of those other figures we saw in the top center. And now you get a whole bunch of people who are not wearing yarmulkes. Starting with Moses Mendelssohn. Now, these people are, almost all of them, I think, are dead by the time this poster is being made, unlike some of the other panels where the people are all alive. This one is all the previous generation. And these are all fathers of Maskilim, essentially. No, maybe not all of them, but here you have Moses Mendelssohn, father of the Haskalah. Right next to him is famous Spanish-Portuguese rabbi, Solomon Ayalon, who was in Amsterdam and in London. And then some people who I tried to understand, I don't know who this person is. He's clearly wearing a wig, so maybe that's why they don't need to wear yarmulkes. Mendelssohn was not wearing a wig, but anyway. This man is named Samuel de Leon. I'm not sure who he was. I think this man's name is Abra Cohen, also of Amsterdam. I don't know anything about him other than that he looks very distinguished. Then you have some very, very famous Maskilim. Naftali Hertz Wesley, Divrei Shalom Ve'emet, and Wolfgang Wesley from Prague. These are very famous Maskilim. And somebody who I'd never heard of before this poster, but is quite fascinating figure, is named Abraham Stern of Warsaw. Abraham Stern of Warsaw. Not a rabbi, but a maskil and a poet, and a person who made calculators, mechanical devices to do mathematical calculations in the 19th century in Poland. A fascinating person. This very distinguished person with a wig, I have no idea who he is. Tried to Google him. I must be getting the name wrong. I couldn't figure it out from the way I was transliterating what's written here. And Tobias Cohn of Metz is a doctor, not a rabbi, a doctor. who was born, I think, in Hungary or in Austria and ends up moving to Metz, which is sort of the German-speaking area of France. Why are these people on here? Don't know. Oh, that's backwards, sorry. Now we get to the bottom center panel, and you'll see a lot of people who I could not make out their names. Some who I could, but don't know anything about, like this Natan Nata Bar Yeshaya Schreier. Don't know who he is. This fellow in the center is named Yitzhak Rolf, the rabbi of Memel. This fellow here is Naftali Tzvi Aub. Don't know much about him, but I'm pretty sure that some of these yarmulkes were not originally to their pictures. The artist is putting it on, and for a fact, this is Max Lederis from Vienna. Max Lederis from Vienna, who is a poet, not a rabbi. This is his picture elsewhere. Suddenly, he looks very different in this poster with a yarmulke on. Not in this picture. It's the same picture, but looks very different in this context than he does over here. Max Lederis. And the person responsible for all of these pictures is this man right here in the center at the bottom. And his name is Israel Wiesen. Israel Wiesen. And we'll talk about who he was or what we know about him next. But just to complete it, there's one more panel of rabbis to go through, and it's the weirdest one of all. And that's this one. A lot of names I had trouble reading, hard to read. This got all faded. If I can find a better copy, or if I can increase the resolution, maybe I'll be able to figure it out. But some of them are very interesting. So this one here, by the way, is David Sassoon, rabbi of Baghdad. He's the founder of the Sassoon dynasty. Moves to London. Pretty famous, wealthy rabbi, or rabbinic family anyway, and philanthropic family. But guess who this is? This is not a maskil. This is not a rabbi. This is not anyone who has lived anywhere close to modernity or the Middle Ages. This is Joseph bar Matityahu HaKohen of Jerusalem. If you get close enough, you'll be, well, hard to see it on the screen, but I could send you a picture, a little better definition. Yosef bar Matityahu HaKohen of Jerusalem. Who is Yosef bar Matityahu? That's Josephus Flavius. Flavius Josephus. That's Josephus, the historian from the 1st century. Bellum Judaicum, the Jewish War. This picture is completely made up, completely fanciful, but it appeared in I think a 17th century edition of the War of the Jews in the frontispiece, and he took it and he put it in here. Why? Why is he in here? I have no idea. I have a theory, but I don't know. I have a theory that the person who made this poster was thinking that it was very historic. And Josephus is the first Jewish historian, perhaps. And so, and maybe that's why he put him in there. But there is no reason that he should be there, especially among all the others. Even the ones that are like much older, like Ayalon is a 17th century figure. Why is he there? Don't know. But at least he's closer in time to all the other rabbis and great figures, but not Josephus. He's way, 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 way different. And so that's the poster. I don't know a lot. I can't even make out who this person is or who this person is. So we'll have to keep some mystery. Maybe I'll have an addendum at some point. But let's find out now who made this poster. So the man's name who made the poster is Israel Wiesen. And that wasn't the one that from 1870 wasn't his first one. This, what you're looking at, was his first poster. And if you take a look here, there are a lot of rabbis in here, but not all of them are rabbis. And in fact, these rabbis are a different persuasion. These rabbis are, for the most part, either radical or moderate reformers. Here is Abraham Geiger. right here on the top. Here on the bottom left, it's Baruch Spinoza. Again, why Spinoza's in here? Much earlier period, but okay. Spinoza. So you get a sense this grouping are reformers for the most part. Some of them are closer to the Orthodox schools, but they're definitely all on the more left-wing camp, even those that are more traditional. By the way, some of them are known to us in the S&P world not as reformers. So this person here is Moses Nathan, who was the rabbi in St. Thomas. And he had a connection to Shearith Israel. And I think he was even considered to be one of the rabbis at one point during the 1860s. They wanted to bring him here. He didn't come. But yeah, he was from the Spanish-Portuguese community of St. Thomas. Why he's here, don't know exactly. Okay. So my point in showing this to you is the author or the person who assembled this had some kind of meaning, some kind of philosophy in mind, and made his groupings. It seems to me that the grouping of the poster that we have in Shearith Israel are all rabbis who were university educated, or maskilim, or philanthropists. With the exception of Josephus, I don't know why he was there. But later in his career, this fellow made more posters. And he made posters of chazanim. I don't have a picture for you, but he made a poster that was all chazanim, and in the center of the poster is Solomon Sulzer. And Solomon Sulzer is surrounded by Louis Lewandowski, and it's like dozens of chazanim who have no other remnant in history, but for this poster that this guy made. So who is this fellow? So his name is Israel Wiesen. He was born in a German-speaking area of Hungary. He goes to the yeshiva of Pressburg, which is the yeshiva of the Chatam Sofer. He is younger than the Chatam Sofer is already dead by the time he goes to the yeshiva, but it was the Tav Sofer and the other members of the Schreiber family were the leaders of that yeshiva. So that's pretty severe orthodoxy. But in a German-speaking area of the world. He comes out of his yeshiva training and he advertises himself as a chazan, cantor, shochet and bodek. He's a ritual slaughterer. He also can do brit milah, and he can be a sofer stam. Sometimes there's different advertisements. You can find him advertising himself as different kinds of functions, and he teaches. He teaches kids. Now, this poster here is advertising his amulet making. He made amulets, Kabbalistically inclined. I don't really know exactly what the purpose of these amulets are, something for Ayin Hara, and you can see there's micography going on here. He has a Star of David with tiny little words making up the Star of David that are verses from the Torah. And it's kind of nice. It's maybe folk arty a little bit, not fine arts, but kind of folk art. And this is his handwriting. This is his, so you can see some of his sofer stam kind of skills, different kind of handwriting in the center. But that's what he did. This is from 1868. So this is before those posters. Here's something else he did before he made those posters. He moved to Frankfurt as a teacher and a chazan, and he starts a business selling very nice memorial plaques, yahrzeit plaques. I don't know what you want to call this kind of thing. Portraits, where you have some information about the person written down, some nice German and or Hebrew phrases, and most importantly, he has images that he has reproduced here, which are copied from well-known portrait of Jeremiah mourning over the temple. And he puts that in the background here, sort of a scene of someone mourning. So that's what he's trying to make a living. He's a teacher, he's a melamed, he's a chazan, he's a mohel, he's a shochet. He'll do any kind of Jewish service you need, and and he's trying to put it all together, make a living, and he has this interest in portraits, and he decides to put them together and make these kind of Gedolim posters. Literally, he calls them Gedolei Israel, and sells them. And I don't think he became wealthy over them. I don't think he became rich over them, but he did sell them. And at least one of those posters made it over to Shearith Israel and is in our archives to this day to be found by me and wondering about what's going on with them. So what happened to him after he makes these posters? So he also settles in a small place in Germany, not a big city, called Osterode am Harz. I don't know where that is, but it's a small place. And he publishes school books. Milah b'milah l'toelet Yiladei b'nei Yisrael. This is a prayer book that is transliterated or like word to word. If you go through it, it's like those old Rashi, not transliterated is the wrong word. Interlinear prayer book for kids in German, Hebrew. And here he has another book for students about studying the tefillah. And that's what he did. He was a teacher of kids who had this, I don't know if it's a hobby or a side business of selling Gedolim posters, which is what he did. And that is really the end of my story. Why this thing is in Shearith Israel's archives is a mystery to me. Did the synagogue buy it? Did someone give it to the synagogue? Did one of the rabbis or chazanim of the congregation purchase it? All of that is possible. I just don't know. And so I'm going to end there today and hope you enjoyed the strange Gedolim poster of Shearith Israel from 1870. That's it.
Gedolim are usually a name for rabbis, Gedolim. Gedolim are rabbis.
But they're not all rabbis. Most of them are rabbis. Almost all of them are rabbis, but not all of them.
No, I'm talking about the right wing when they use the word Gedolim.
And I think he means it the same way. It's just that his poster is huge.
No, but you're referring like to Montefiore as a Gadol. No, he's not. He's not a rabbi.
Take it up with Israel Wiesen.
Oh, he calls them Gedolim?
It said on there. I'll share my screen. He goes, it's Gedolei Yisrael. That's what he called it. Let me see if I can.
Maybe he could have said Manhigei Israel.
Yeah. Let me. Okay. Here, Gedolei Yisrael. Who are the Gedolei Yisrael? Rabbi. Some Gevirim in the center. and an assortment of Maskilim and Josephus.
Well, it's a different period. And our period in the yeshivish world, a Gadol is a rabbi.
Yes, I think even in this period, I think he intends it to be mainly rabbis. But yeah.
But he put Montefiore.
He put Montefiore and put Montefiore in the center spot. Yeah. But the placement of these rabbis is very, they certainly have some sense to him. Like he puts all these earlier fathers of Haskalah in one corner, and he puts all these more severely Orthodox rabbis in another. But they're flanked. These are more moderate reformers. Here's Zachariah Frankel. Here's Marcus Jastrow. Here's Samson Raphael Hirsch. I don't think anyone would conceive today of having a poster with all these people on it from different camps. Now, what you don't find, the Vilna Gaon, you don't find Chacham Tzvi, you don't find Yaakov Emden, you don't find Yonatan Eibeshitz. I think because those rabbis were not university educated. The Tzad HaShaveh for most of these people, not all of them, is that they had university educations, regardless of whether they ended up Reform or Orthodox. They were rabbis who had university educations.
Okay, so he had different priorities.
Clearly.
Gedolei.
I mean, but he was a very Orthodox person. And he was teaching Orthodox kids in Germany, and he was a Torah teacher. He wasn't teaching, Haskalah. He was teaching, Aleph Bet and translation of the Siddur and Chumash. So it's interesting that he must have had some kind of reform leanings. As I showed you, his first poster is almost all reformers. That's from 1869. And so there's a fellow named Richard Cohen, a professor in Israel, and his theory is that he was trying to he makes many of these posters. In fact, there's another one. I got very confused when I found it. It is printed the same year, 1870. Looks almost identical, but when you look carefully, there's different people in them. Almost the same. They'll have like 8 out of the 9 people, but then there'll be one rabbi different, or it'll have a rabbi in a different box. It's very frustrating, but clearly he was playing around with the compositions, and I think what he was trying to do was find something that people wanted to buy, make a little money on the side. And so after he does this one, he does one just for Chazanim, and that one is apparently pretty successful. It gets mentioned in the Cantorial Journal in Austria, in Vienna, a few years after he makes it. By the way, in Der Israelit, which is Marcus Lehmann's, where's Marcus Lehmann? Here he is. Marcus Lehmann's Orthodox Jewish newspaper published in Mainz. There is an editorial after this comes out, even though he's in it, but there's an editorial written anonymously, excoriating this fellow Wiesen and his poster for including Josephus. That's
including what?
The whole editorial about it.
Including what?
For including Josephus in this, like it says, it makes no sense. They really couldn't understand what this guy was doing.
Yeah, he didn't go to university.
He didn't go to university. He wasn't a rabbi. He wasn't a maskil. What's he doing here? Who knows? And that's not him. Most of them are photographs from the 19th century. Few of them, like here, are etchings or engravings, but probably from portraits of the person in life. This one is completely made up, right? If you think about Gedolei, I'm going to stop the share. If you think about Gedolei pictures today, or just pictures of rabbis today, some of them are based on portraits that we know they look like that. I think Yonatan Eibeshitz or Chacham Tzvi, things like that. Like the Rambam, Maimonides, there's no picture of Maimonides, but my guess is you have a vision in your head, because there is a very, very, very widespread picture of Maimonides, which comes from a 17th century book, or maybe even an earlier book, maybe 16th century front piece, which claims to have been made from a old medieval medallion, which is supposed to have come from very ancient times in Spain, but that no one has ever seen such a medallion, and it's pretty much presumed by all scholars to be complete, artist reconstruction with no actual knowledge of what Maimonides looked like. And there's tons of those. Every time you see a picture of a Barbanel, we don't know what a Barbanel looked like. Any of these, they lived before pre-modern times. They didn't sit for a portrait. We have no idea what Joseph looked like. Nevertheless, he made it to the Gedolei poster. Okay, everybody, that's it for tonight. So thank you all for joining in.
Thank you.
We'll probably talk about Passover then.
Thank you.
I see my niece.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Yes.